The great-great-grandchild of the Bendix King Portable is this BK radio, BK KNG P25 mobile. This mobile is capable of 5,000 channels. Here at the South Carolina Forestry Commission, we've only been able to program about 600 with every fire department, DNR, federal channels that we could think of. So we're around 600, so we have plenty of capacity for extended growth. This radio comes in a 110 watt power range, and the power cable is very large. The power cable that goes to the vehicle is number 8 gauge wire, which is very, very heavy. But this radio, for our demonstration, for the temporary demonstration that we have from BK Radio, is limited to 55 watts. So we have plenty of power capability. This radio is extremely heavy. It is not a lightweight radio like our Motorola's. It is very, very heavy, built on a very heavy chassis to be able to take the heat from the 110 watt power dissipation. This radio comes in P25, digital, and analog. It does not have the other digital formats such as Kenwood, Next Edge, or DMR. It is strictly a public safety radio with P25 digital. It's capable of the current phase 1 and also capable of the future phase 2 P25 digital. To power the radio on, we press the volume button. It comes up with a BK logo, and as you see, I have it programmed to come up on the Florence repeater. The zone is SC statewide, and I currently have the time and date programmed in. These 3 lines are flexible. There's a number of different things that you can put in, but I would recommend at least the SC zone that we use, and also the repeater name would be what we would need. Now notice the display is going up and down. I think it must have an automatic dim function in here to adjust for brightness and darkness. So we'll let that go for now. Not exactly sure what's going on here, but I wouldn't let that stop our demonstration. The buttons on the radio that we have programmed is scan, zone, home, which is also can be programmed here on this button, which is home, and also a monitor function. We'll start with the zone. I have programmed about 14 different zones in this radio, and this radio is capable of taking an Excel spreadsheet with all of our radio frequencies and fire departments and importing them into the radio minutes compared to hours as to what we're used to with other vendor products. This radio has been set up and to change zones. I go down. It's been set up with each adjacent supervisor having their fire departments either on the left side of the tacticals or the right side of the tacticals. So one supervisor, if he wanted to go to his fire departments in his zone, he would go to the left of channel 1, and another supervisor in the adjacent zone would go to the right of the last repeater and have their fire departments. That way, and a perfect example would be Williamsburg and Georgetown. Those two work pretty well together. So they would be able to change the channel. Let's select the zone here. And there's the OK button. So there's the Black River zone. We change the frequencies. And we see Williamsburg County to the left of 1. And then as we go to the right, there's only a few in Georgetown. We included Hugh G, but Georgetown County Fire, Midway Fire, Murrells Inlet, Garden City. Obviously these fire departments are on 800 megahertz, but they have a VHF page-in frequency, so we went ahead and put those in the radio. So as we go back to zone, and since this is an informal video, I think there's 16 different forestry zones here, 17 including the weather. So I select the zone, I press OK. Let's see what the weather sounds like.
9 feet. The 7 a.m. stage is 8.0.
The radio has a very, very beautiful audio sound. I'm not sure if you can tell from the video or not, but it's rich and it sounds great.
Stage is 9.57 feet. In the past 24 hours, the river level has fallen 0.20 feet. On the Watery River.
The volume has clicks. It's not a. It's got a click volume control.
0.78 feet. In the past 24 hours.
And it gets extremely loud. So the radio is very mobile friendly. All right, let's change zones and go back to something else. Let's go home. Let's see what the home button does. The home button, I pressed the home button and went back to Florence. This radio does not have but one home button, which to me is not the end of the world. Okay, if you see the button highlighted in green, it's in scan, the scan button. There's also a symbol up here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but if I take it out, the mic holder, just like the Motorola's, the scan symbol will go away. You say, well, can I program my scan just like I did the Motorola? The answer is yes. And there's a lot of things still in menu that would be removed. We can also program the menus and include a lot of things in the menu. Channel scan list. Mash OK. You see the squares? To select it, put the scan list, you mash the OK. Or you mash the plus minus. And that's how you set your scan list. Very similar to the Kenwoods. Very simple to do. Very simple to do. When you finish, press Escape, settings saved. Escape again, you go back to normal. Press the menu again. In this case, I'm going to look at the backlight. What's going on? Remember, it was dimming. I'm just, see, it's on auto. Automatic backlight. So next, I'll put it on medium so we can see it better. Is that too much for the video? So now I know what happened. The backlight is automatically set. We can adjust squelch. We can do a number of things. This is just some of the common things. PA, let's talk about that. This radio is very interesting. Unlike the Motorola, and we'll get a zoom up of that a little bit later, we have a speaker connector, speaker 1. Speaker 1, it's a little bit easier connector that goes to the speaker than the Motorola. It just comes apart here. And also they have a designation for speaker 2/PA. It's an automatic thing in this radio where you can have a second speaker, like for your outside tractor speaker. It's automatically built into the radio. So you can have your PA or your external speaker and you can program a button. The only limitation I see is there are only 4 programmable buttons on the front. So we may have to look at some adjustments of that and see which 4, really 5. We could do away with the home button being here. We could do away with that, make that a PA button or speaker button, and then use this one as the home button as it's so designated. See if there's anything else in the menu worth. At a user level, I really don't see a lot of this. This radio is still relatively new to us. This radio has a lot of capabilities. A lot of things this radio will do. But the basic interesting thing too is the microphone. And we'll zoom in on the microphone. A lot of the functions of this radio can be done via the microphone. I can actually go into channel scan from the microphone. If the buttons are programmed, we can actually do some of the functions. And if you got one that's not programmed, it'll let you know with an air horn sound. The monitor button is programmed for the one below the microphone. See it turning green? Okay, so that's the only thing that's programmed on this. So, and the OK button corresponds with this OK button, and we'll have a video of that. Microphone's pretty expensive. They run about $250, but they have a lot of capability to them. One function this radio has as a safety feature is to let you know that if the antenna is wrong and there's something wrong with the antenna, it will not work. Observe. PD dispatch, PD7 Florence. And to stop that, you mash the button. I did not realize till just now that it had an automatic SWR warning detector. I've got a makeshift antenna in here and it don't like it. So it will protect the radio from messing up whenever there's a problem. So we will not do a simulated call at this point, but trust me, it does work and it works well. Now we're going to talk about the screws, connections, and antenna connections and ports and power. So let's get ready for that. As compared to our existing mini UHF Motorola style connector, as you see, these connectors are different. This radio uses a N connector, and an N connector is what we use on our repeaters and our base stations. So it uses a more robust, heavy-duty connector. If we go with this radio, for the sake of flexibility in the field, we'll probably still stay with the mini UHF, and we'll just have, instead of a two-stage adapter like I've got for this video, we'll probably just use a one-stage adapter and screw the connector on the antenna. Just like the other antennas, need to make sure they're tight when you're using them. The Motorola radio has a 16-pin accessory port, the little small speaker jack and connector pin. This radio uses a more heavier 25-pin DB25 like you used to see on computer connections. All your remote connections go through here. Computer remote control connections, both speakers are actually accessed from here. Radio again has a fixed pigtail for the power just like the PM400s, and it's a heavier gauge. It's a 12-gauge pigtail, which mates with an 8-gauge wire, which I did not bring for the demonstration, but is very heavy in order to handle the higher power capability of the radio. We mentioned this earlier. This can be wired up to an ignition switch if need be, or a kill switch in order to remote the radio. A couple of minor negatives that I see, and they're minor, but it takes two screws here. Don't know what size they are. Have to look at that. But this whole assembly, which is a plus, which could be a plus, slides forward and backward. But the problem is it's in a tight location. It's going to be difficult to slide it in and out and get the holes to line up because the piece actually inside the track moves up and down this ridge. The other negative that I see is this microphone connector. It's tiny, very small. Very small microphone connector here. Just for your information, this is the programming port for programming the radio here. Microphone connection has this elbow. The elbow sticks up way beyond the volume control. It's manageable and usable, but as a personal preference, they could have done better than that. In a basic review of the buttons, the orange button is an emergency button. With the analog system we currently have, the orange button has no function. If we were a digital system, we could send an emergency signal. If the radio was purchased with GPS, it would give a latitude and longitude and the unit number that was in distress. If you press it now, emergency disabled. Again, the OK button selects the function that you select with the rocker. And the home button can be programmed for another function. I had the home button programmed here, and I changed the home button program here to backlight. And that was only during the time of development and experimentation. The buttons on the front are flexible for the different functions. The zone could be put in position 1, the scan could be put in 2, home could be put here, monitor. The menu stays pretty well fixed in its location, but that's something the communications committee can decide. That's a minor thing that can be changed. The zone layout, again, can be changed. With the Kenwood NX 5700, we adopted the same zone layout, and the supervisors seemed to like having the 2 FMOs per zone that were basically co-located adjacent to each other and worked together in various situations, so we stuck with that. What this does for us is we only have 1 or 2 templates statewide, a law enforcement template and a non-law enforcement template. Makes it a lot easier to set up one big template and make changes to those templates along, as we don't see our VHF system changing that much, with the exception of maybe going digital one day. In summary, the BK radio is a very durable, flexible radio. It's very heavy duty. It should stand weather. It meets all the military specs. Very robust radio. Like I said, a couple of things that's I don't like is the mic connector. But this radio is very comparable to the Kenwood NX 5700 that you folks have had the opportunity to try out in some of your vehicles. The main difference is there's knobs on this radio, which a lot of people like better than the push buttons, but the basic operation between the 2 radios would be comparable. The Kenwood did have an audio problem on analog that was real muddy, which would not make it a great candidate for our use. This radio appears to have that problem taken care of, and it sounds good on the repeaters, and it's not muffled or muddy. The only question on the table at this point is we have not seen the Motorola Apex 1500. We've not touched one, we've not evaluated one, we don't know where we stand with that. So until we get that, we really don't have a 100% answering conclusion. I will say from a programming standpoint, this is the easiest radio I've ever programmed, being able to program 600 channels in about 4 hours just by cutting and pasting from a master database, not really having to think about it, sliding channels back and forth. Also, this radio is capable, if you go out west, of having a command channel. And a command bank, I should say. And the command bank allows you to make your own bank on the fly. Now that's an advanced feature, probably wouldn't be turned on in normal conditions. The radio also is easy to clone, easy to copy. As you know, with the Motorola's, it takes about 30 to 45 seconds to copy the radio programming from one to another. This one can be done in about a second. Hook the computer up, send the data. By the time you say 1001, the data is transferred to the radio, and it takes longer for the radio to cycle off and cycle back on than it does for the radio programming to become active. So it's very flexible from an operation standpoint for going out of state. And this is probably the reason that a number of states, including North Carolina and Florida, have gone whole hog with the Bendix King Mobile. Price tag on the radio is pretty pricey, around $2,000. So if you have any questions about this radio that we haven't answered or attempted to answer, if we don't have the answer, we'll see if we can find the answer, but feel free to give me a call. All of you know how to get in touch with me. And with that being said, stay safe, stay virus free, and have a great 2020.